Welcome, everybody, to the show. This is Counterclipping show number 225 for June 1st, 2025. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming this evening. We are drinking the last of Glenmore and Gila Santa. Matured in sherry casks, or at least finished in sherry casks and bottled at 40%. It has been lingering around for entirely too long, and we will be finishing it this evening. We will also be clipping Advanced Squad Leader, as usual. Still with the... actually, we got some German vehicles here, although I think these German vehicles are for the Denant campaign game that appeared in the latest edition of Croix de Guerre. So, I would like to remind and our topic tonight is we're going to do a little spotlight and take a look at BCS, the Battalion Combat Series from Multiman Publishing and legendary late designer Dean Essig. And I got a haircut, that is true. It won't spoil in a conventional sense, but it can oxidize, which can affect the flavor. I've probably had the bottle for about 3 or 4 years, to be completely honest. I'm not out of scotch, okay? And Origins is coming up, and I got to look presentable for Origins, right? So, in any case, I'd like to remind everybody to like the video if you have not done so already. Give me that big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you have not done that already. Big shout out to the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair, without whose support and encouragement we would not be able to keep doing this. And another shout out to our good buddies at Noble Knight Games, the official sponsor of the Counterclipping show, from whom we will be hearing later. So before we go any further, let's say hello to Heron Dennis, Alistair Logie, B. Goebel, Wargaming Geezer, Bob Meyer, Brent McKay, Brian Jarvis, Chad Kennedy, Charles, Chet Bell, Christophe DeClerc, Dale Brady, Daniel Silverthorne, Danny Seckery, Dave Poirier, David Imperato, David Zell, DJ Flippy, Eric Goebel, Eric Schaefer, Eric Selna. Welcome to the show. Grunyard Rich, HUN644 New, the legend himself, fucko, was here. James Whitmer, Jeff Anderson, Jeff Beeler, Jeff T, Joe Hammond, Jonathan K, John Clark, John Griffiths, Jonathan Dyer, Carl Crater from the Wargame Bootcamp, Kev Morris, Kyle Harris, Lee Grant, Mark Hodgkinson, Marty Sample is here, Meandering Mike is in the house, Michael Levanzini, Michael Karlowski, Patrick of Patrick's Tactics and Tutorials, Paul Dangle, Paul Sin, Rick Cox, Rob Johnson, Royce, Stacking Limit, Stigler is here, Stuka Joe, welcome back, Vicky, welcome back to the show as well, Vince Ree, William Bird, and I apologize to anyone that I have missed. So, and if I miss you, Carl, your presence here is appreciated this evening, since we are going to talk, or gush, if you like, about BCS. So, but we do have a little bit of news to go over first. We don't have any big time-consuming news, but the crowns, by the way, if folks are seeing crowns in the chat, I actually can't see that from my side. I believe it's some new YouTube community thing that nobody is going to care about. So, and David Imperato, you're welcome, and thanks Stigler. He did the hard part. All I had to do was open the box and paw through the material and gush over it. So anyway, there we go. I have done this so many times. So, all right. So before we get started with anything else, I have one piece. How do I want to do this? Let's see. I didn't outline this. So I've gotten a campaign update. I did not update let me get the ticker up though. We're going to do a campaign update here. But I didn't redo the little banner because I think we're going to pivot on this. So here's what's going to happen. And I feel like this is a fairly big announcement. So the current campaign, I'll pull the banner up even though it's not up to date, is for the War in Europe Revised Edition, okay? There is now enough, as of literally today, I got the store credit parcel from Noble Knight. I shouldn't say parcel, I should say it tends to like get a big dump into my store credit account roughly once a month. So, and that occurred this morning. So we have enough, however, this edition of War in Europe is not currently in stock at Noble Knight. So we are going to instead pivot and do the next thing that we are going to do. We're going to keep all the credit because it's not going to happen this month. Here's what we're going to do. We will be giving away a copy of Case Blue. that is the next campaign. We're going to just pivot to it right now. There's a bunch of credit there already. It's about half of what we need for an unpunched case blue. It will be an unpunched case blue. So it will get purchased from Noble Knight with store credit, however that turns out to be. I will get it shipped to me, and then I'll check it to make sure everything is cool, and then we will give it away at that time. So that is, yes, I am dead serious. This is, I feel like I need to give back to the folks who come here every week. Now, I don't know if this is going to happen next month, because we do have a ways to go between now and Case Blue, but I will have a ticker status update for that next week. So anticipate that will probably happen in July or August. Is probably a pretty good bet. But you can speed that up by using the affiliate link in the video description for our good friends at Noble Knight Games. So lots of folks, Case Blue is their grail game. So this is their opportunity to, and there's no raffle or anything like that. It's going to be given away on this show here exactly the way we normally do it. So you do not, in fact, get any bonus entries for this. So, we're not giving that away tonight. We're giving that away once it shows up, but I will keep everybody updated as we continue to work towards that goal. So that is now the campaign for Case Blue. I will have that ready to go as soon as we hit the number. Thank you, Scott Connor. Welcome to the show. Yeah, I'm reasonably happy with my Traveler collection. There's more and more. So actually, there isn't any on that shelf, but, well, unless you count 2300, which you can't see right now, unless you count 2300 AD, which is on that shelf. So, but in any case, let's take a sip of this. I do predict that this night will have strong numbers. We're probably looking at counterclipping show 235 or something like that, so maybe 6, 8, 10 weeks for now. No idea. It must be rating season, yeah. I'm just waiting for the check, as it were. So we do have news tonight too. So let's get into that. OSG, the Operational Studies Group, led by veteran designer Kevin Zucker, has announced a pre-order for a new edition of Bonaparte in Italy. This game has been through a number of iterations, and I have the OSG old version of this, which covers all of Napoleon's Italian campaign. At least the campaign in 1796, 1797. This is not going to be out until next year, but folks who are into this topic and who are into, for example, OSG games and into operational stuff probably ought to take a look at this. So I'll throw a link in the chat for this if anybody wants to hop over. Yeah, they usually do have a copy or 3 of Case Blue in stock, so I don't really anticipate availability issues at that time. I pull this down for now. So Dan's toilet will be the first prize probably. So, and it's expensive, right? It's expensive. We're most of the way there now, although I haven't run the actual numbers, but we're not all the way there, I can tell you that. Even based on this current price, which I did not actually check. Doesn't matter. It's whatever they have available. But the guideline is going to be that it needs to be unpunched and complete. So, and a good reason to buy this kind of stuff from Noble Knight in the first place is because if there's a problem, they'll fix it. They'll figure it out. So, that's why I bought my copy of Second Front from them. Case Blue is for closers. There we go. So the Bonaparte in Italy is not Library of Napoleonic Battles. It is Campaigns of Napoleon, Zucker's operational Napoleonic series. There have been several might be underselling it a little bit. There's been a number of games in this series, and I have several of them. Maybe the best known one might be 1809 that Victory Games did back in the day. I'll tell you what, there was somebody selling some knives at some home show not too long ago that I was at, and those were some of the crappiest knives I've seen in a long time. Eric Schaefer, is the OSG stuff considered to be a Napoleonic version of GCACW? I wouldn't say it's not remotely similar, but it is. I wouldn't describe it as a Napoleonic GCACW either. It's probably, in terms of series, probably as close as we have right now to GCACW for Napoleonics, but it's mechanically not terribly similar. You will notice some concepts that underlie both series of games, but those are not. No, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be eligible. To be honest, I hadn't thought of this though, so I don't see why not. I am caught up on the Library of Napoleonic Battles games that are actually released. Perhaps I should take a look at exactly what is going on with this Crown horseshit, because I am not familiar with this thing that YouTube has just rolled out. I didn't see any option to turn it off. I'd say it's ignorable. So ignore them. That's what it is. And yeah, this is just like community thing. You can, there's like a leaderboard for the show. No one is looking at that. I don't care. So, but you will get points, I guess, for to do nothing with if you chat in the chat. So, I will look into turning this off. So, because I don't know that it's a feature that I really require. Let me check something here. Is this something I can actually turn off? Okay. Okay. I for the moment, please ignore it. So I'm not turning it off like right now, because I'll have to like go into settings and figure it out. Maybe another one of the really well-known Campaigns of Napoleon games is Napoleon at Bay, which has been through a couple of editions of its own. One from two, I think, at least, from OSG, and then the one from Avalon Hill, which has one of the worst box covers I saw out of Avalon Hill ever, to be completely honest. The little crown icons that show up. No, we'll get Steve on next week, is what we'll do, and we'll troubleshoot it before the show over the phone. I am confident in our ability to do that. If anybody watched the Chit Show last night, you'll know that we had Steve Fratt on for an hour-long session of charades because Steve couldn't get his audio working. So, I mean, I guess that's on them. Go right ahead, but that would be lame, right? That would be lame, and I will consider that lame. So oh, really? Okay, cool. I don't know. I haven't looked at this feature at all. So since this is the first live, maybe we had it last night. I didn't notice. So that people managed to stay tuned last night is nothing short of miraculous, to be completely honest. I looked at that. You might be able to turn them off. The help center. All right, I'll work on this later. I'm not going to be able to figure this out right now. So Danny says it was here last night. The 2007 game from Dean. Yes, that Case Blue, the one that the giant monster 10 map game from with 12 counter sheets or whatever it was, and about 6 different books. Yes, that Case Blue, from Dean. So Steve is a tremendous sport, as you saw last night if you were watching. So Winterson's asking if anybody has experience with a game called 2GM Tactics. And if yes, what did you think about it? 2-player deck building war game. I am completely unfamiliar with that. So, I actually no, they have not. They have like a standard affiliate package that I pulled the things out of. And if I missed an email, that wouldn't shock me. But I will look into removing the leaderboard nonsense. Can this be turned? The question, though, is can this be turned off by... All right, I turned it off. We'll see what happens. It might not take effect until like the next stream, so we'll see. Okay, so it's a game from Draco Ideas out of Spain. Cool. So, all right. So what else did we have for news? I think that's really the only big news. I guess in RPG news, I suppose Paradox is setting up White Wolf. They bought White Wolf from CCP, the publishers or maintainers of EVE Online. about 9 years ago, and they're setting them up as their own operation again, which is a new development. So cool if you're into that stuff. I haven't really looked at any of the new stuff that, came out of the White Wolf set of properties, the new World of Darkness. Well, I guess we're calling it the new old World of Darkness stuff, aren't we? I don't want to spend too much time on RPG stuff. I have looked at Daggerheart. What Daggerheart is it is the game designed for Critical Role, I guess, and it does not sound appealing to me. And for that matter, Draw Steel doesn't sound particularly appealing to me either, and I consider them both kind of reactions to 5e. So, well, I don't know if it's going to be a new edition. There is a current edition. The local game store has it on the shelf, so at least these two. So Scott Connor got a smooth transaction as a first-time buyer from Noble Knight just a few days ago. That is very good. I have a problem, actually. There's a video on it, which you'll see if it ever friggin' uploads, which it doesn't look like it's going to. So there's that. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'd rather turn it off, to be honest. I think it's an unnecessary distraction. Oh, very nice. Charles Latour will be playing the Gold Beach scenario for Panzer Leader for June 6th. That sounds pretty cool. That's, what is that, Thursday? Friday. Yeah, I probably won't be able to manage any actual celebration for that, but hopefully at one point we will get that Normandy BCS game. So, and for that matter, the Normandy OCS game too. Although, frankly, I'm a little more excited about BCS. All right, that was a tab crash. That happens from time to time. So, all right, so hit that like button, folks. Thank you, Danny Seckery. Jeff Beeler bought War Story, Occupied France by David Thompson. I think there's a co-designer on that. I have heard good things about it, but that's about it so far. It is pretty new. So David is, of course, a top designer. So, I have some confidence that it's going to be good. Carl, I was in on some of the very early playtesting of that. This is probably 5 or 6 years ago now. And I got to be honest, it was rough at the time, but it was early playtesting, so I kind of expect it to be rough at the time. Hopefully it is coming along. So, and Saturday, June 7th is International Tabletop Games Day. I had no idea that was the case. So, this is not a bad idea. The Pegasus Bridge scenario for ASL on midnight, June 5th. I don't have Pegasus Bridge, though, and I'm not getting it. Excellent. Thank you, Carl, for the update. BCS Normandy is on the docket. And Carl has write a blog over on BGG where he regularly updates the status of various BCS projects. And, well, it isn't going to be the next thing. I'm actually really interested in that Sedan game, too, France 1940, to be honest. But to be honest, whatever MMP or Carl want to do for BCS, I'm pretty much happy to buy it. So Brent shares that Hollandspiel released okay. There's a game with a really long name that came out for Hollandspiel. I will take a look at that. So, nice. Lee Grant, thanks so much for the support. Lee is going to be watching The Longest Day on Friday, which he did with his father, and he will be continuing that tradition. It's a good movie too. It's a long movie, but it's a good movie. This is a Carl question, but I think we have a pretty good chance of seeing Inflection Point, which we'll talk about as the latest entry in the series. Well, I guess the upcoming entry in the series. The latest entry in the series is actually, of course, Valley of Tears. So let's see. This is. I think this is Amabel having fun. So would be my guess. Oh, nice. BCS France 1940. Is currently in playtesting. Next up after Inflection Point and after Danger Forward, which is Battle of Gela, which I'm also excited about because I like Italian campaign stuff and Invasion of Sicily stuff as well. So, well, the title is big. I don't know if the news is big. I don't know what the game's about either, but I will certainly check it out. This is Saturday, June 7th. Yeah, this is the online SD HistCon event. which there's going to be a whole bunch of people at. It's really quite cheap. It's worth your time to go and do, and that is this weekend. So if you want to do the SD HistCon online thing, there'll be a bunch of seminars and demos and all kinds of stuff there's going to be interesting stuff there. And frankly, there was a lot of, it was interesting to go to SD Hist because there's a lot of designers there showing off in development games, some of which are already lined up with the publisher and some of which aren't. The majority of which were probably somebody had already bitten on, but there was at least, Sam London alone probably had half a dozen games that nobody had managed to score from him yet. So, all right, so let's see here. Yoko Ono's greatest hit. What would that be? That's interesting. I'm not sure I knew that. Thank you, Perfidious Albion. He says that the interesting thing about The Longest Day is that it was originally filmed in English, but then they refilmed some of the scenes to have the German speak in German and the French speak in French and so forth. So that is interesting. I don't think I knew that. Yes, this is not actually live yet, though, so I wasn't going to talk about this until it is actually live on Kickstarter. But yeah, the new Old School Tactical, or at least one of the new Old School Tactical releases, is going to be France 1940. And another one is going to be Poland 1939, which is a more interesting campaign than a lot of people think it is. If you want a look at this campaign, there's a game called Poland Defiant from Revolution Games, if I'm not mistaken, that's quite good. And we'll kind of give you a sense of the dynamics of that campaign. Stigler, are we talking about... Oh, okay, so this is Richard Berg's Glory, not the movie Glory. The movie's really good. This was probably colorized, because the original is in black and white. No doubt about that. Nice. Eric Selna, thanks for stopping by. Picked up Panzer's Last Stand to learn BCS. And I'm going to have a tip once we get to it here. I'm not sure. I think it's 5. I think. All right, and then Catastrophe Games just released Lonely Cairn, a solitaire game about finding the Northwest Passage in the mid-1800s. That might be intriguing, to be honest. I would play that at a convention. The one thing that I will tell to tell newcomers to BCS, the Battalion Combat Series, I think it's not hugely important which game you pick in the series. But there's a couple caveats that go with that. One is that Last Blitzkrieg, the first original game in the series, and somehow the tab crash cost me my screen share too, so let's hop over here. There we go. All right, so Last Blitzkrieg was the first game in the series, designed, of course, by Dean Essig and released in 2016. We have played a whole campaign of this. It was just a ton of fun. However, there have been a number of improvements made to the game and the components since Last Blitzkrieg was released. There have been at least 2 additional versions of the rules, which did clarify some things and streamlined a couple other things. I do recommend pretty strongly that anybody playing BCS play with the current rules, which you could download directly from Multiman rather than with whatever came in the box that you have. Poland Defiant is Revolution, White Eagle Defiant is Hollandspiel, and there's been a few games on the topic. Brazen Chariots does have a few hairy scenarios, let me put it that way. They have released Aracore. Or do you mean reprint Aracore? Because I could see that. I don't know that they're going to do that. So the other thing is that starting with Brazen Chariots, the units have a colored stripe on the counters that tell you what formation or command the unit or division or whatever it is, the unit is attached to. Now, it's not necessary to have that, right? We played, Last Blitzkrieg doesn't have it. We played it without it, and only a couple of times did I accidentally move the wrong guys because they're the same color as the guys I was moving. But it did happen a couple of times. So it is easier if you have the colored stripe or some other similar indicator on the counter to tell you what formation the unit you're looking at belongs to. Yes, VUCA does have a Poland. VUCA's got a lot of stuff coming, to be fair. So, yes, I would read the designer's notes, and there's that BCS reference booklet that comes in several of the games as well, and I would recommend reading that for newcomers to the series. But one of the things that I think... So, I played... I'll give you my rundown on this. I had Brazen Chariots. Was the first game in the series that I actually bought. Is that actually true? Maybe it was Baptism by Fire. I've played every game in the series except for Valley of Tears and Panzer's Last Stand. So Carl's games are the ones I haven't played. Sorry, Carl. There we go. So Carl gives us the details on this. There's been 4 different versions of the BCS rules. Like I said, I would recommend playing with the new ones. Oh, is that a reprint? That must be a reprint. That's a lot. My copy of I hate to break this to you, and I'm gonna boast. I won my copy of Last Blitzkrieg from Multiman in the raffle at Winter Offensive, so I was delighted to have that. Speaking of my next piece of advice, here he is, Mr. Doug himself from the Tabletop's Edge. So, and you can totally play Last Blitzkrieg with the new rules. There are a couple of terminology changes, which I think are good terminology changes that should have happened, that you'll have to kind of cross-reference. But once you know that defensive terrain is now called key terrain, that's pretty much the only huge hang-up. And it's got the old name on the player aid cards. So I could use some pierogies right now. I've always found it, growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, as I did, I've always found it weird when people from other parts of the country don't know what pierogies are. I would strongly recommend, in the strongest possible terms, to go over to the YouTube channel called The Tabletop's Edge and watch Doug's playthrough series of Last Blitzkrieg. It is not a tutorial series, but it will give you an excellent sense of how the game flows and how it functions. And it is an amazing supplement for reading the rules. It is a rule book. It's not immensely thick. It is a rule book that you will want to read carefully. Oh, yeah, that would be something unusual. So... yeah, you could play any game in the series with the current rules. That is not a problem at all. Like I said, they just changed the name. I'm not sure if there's another terminology change or not, but they changed it from just defensive terrain, which isn't just terrain. Terrain just is a +1 on the snafu roll, or on the attack roll, I should say. And the defensive terrain does other things too. And now it's called key terrain, distinguishing it better from the previous just regular terrain. And trafficability, that's a good point too. I remember that line. Oh, very nice. Chris George, the best pierogies he's ever had were from nuns in Pittsburgh who sold them out of a remodeled gas station in McKees Rocks, Pennsylvania. But he's never been to Poland. I've also never been to Poland. The best pierogies I have ever had were at a Ukrainian-American Youth Association campground that we had an SCA event at. And as far as I know, that event is still happening there. It's in Wellington, Ohio. And on the Saturday, I'm pretty sure it was the Saturday, all the old Polish grandmothers would occupy the kitchen and hand make pierogies all day, and they were amazing. So... By Swords and Bayonets is next in the clipping queue. I just got to get some tray management stuff done before I can really start on that. There, but more props for Doug on the Last Blitzkrieg series. It's just an amazing walkthrough of the kind of the whole game, and a lot of what you will learn applies more to Last Blitzkrieg, but you can then roll that into whatever game in the series that you want. Every game in the series does have small scenarios, so you don't necessarily have to play the entire campaign. I would select the game in the series that you are most interested in based on the topic. I don't think there's a huge difference in approachability between the various games in the series. Now, that said, Ericore is the smallest game in the series so far, and if you would like to try the series out without necessarily dropping $539 for the out-of-print last Blitzkrieg, then I would recommend looking at that. I don't know what the deal is. I'm not sure if Carl has said or not what the deal is on the on a reprint of Ericore, but Meandering Mike had Polish Home Association in Seattle. Those are probably good. Pierogies are fans of prog rock, just like me. So that's cool. SD HistCon. Let me. One of the things that SD Hist is not good at. Fabulous people, fabulous event. One of the things that they're less amazing at is the website. The website is less great than I would prefer. Trying to find it on the website here. This is what I mean. I guess I'll present. If you look at this, I'm not seeing anything on here about the current event. Now, I'm sure it's here somewhere, but it's weird that I have to like paw around looking for it. And most of this stuff is from last year. I would get your information out of the GMT newsletter that was released last week or the week before. It's all linked in there. I would look there for information. It's going to probably be run through Tabletop Events. So, Molotov Cockatiel, any recommendations for GBOH vids? Are there any on Cataphract? I know that Callendale has done some video, and there's been crap. I'm trying to remember now. Gilbert Collins has done some video, but it's not necessarily playthrough video. I would like to see somebody do good GBOH video, and maybe that's going to be me once I get everything straightened out after Origins is taken care of. Carl mentions that Danger Forward will be another one map with bigger hexes and bigger counters and all that stuff. There is probably some overlap here. There is at least one Czech prog rock band. Doug is editing the first GCACW video over the next few days. That's awesome. Almost impossible. I understand. They kind of are, actually. All right, so probably not this year for a reprint of Ericore, but keep your eyes out for Danger Forward. I do anticipate a good release cadence for BCS at this point, because it seems to be a series that is catching on a lot. So, SD HistCon is easier to find on Tabletop Events, says Jeff Beeler. So, yeah, I mean, this is last year's at the Naval War College. This sounded amazing, and the facility is pretty cool too. Doug mentions that the series support book has come in every BCS game since Brazen Chariots, and it is. And actually, Doug wrote part of it, so he is biased, but it is a very good. Danger Forward is the. I think that's the Gala game, or is that the? I'll let Carl clarify. Oh, very nice. Dickie from RVT Games is writing up a great intro to BCS that will be included with Danger Forward. So that's pretty cool. I appreciate that MMP, I'm going to complain now. I appreciate that MMP has, recognizes the need for like more accessible volumes in the various series that they do as a primarily series-oriented publisher. At the same time, those approachable smaller games tend to evaporate very quickly and go out of print and then go for tons of money. So that is a more troublesome practice. So, all right, Danger Forward is Gala. If you just want like Bill, I don't think you're the person that needs the general introduction to Great Battles of History. That's something that Gilbert Collins did, and it's an excellent video, but you're probably looking for something a little more detailed than that particular video. Yeah, well, I guess, Dean, I mean, we didn't always have this as a design goal, right? But that's a considerable factor, right? But again, though, all the games have multiple scenarios, including Ericore, actually. Ericore has at least like 3 scenarios, as I recall. And yes, and I'm glad to see that they reprinted Sicily 2. And Luzon is available now, too, as an introductory OCS game. So, and it's a it's not going to show you a number of things about OCS. But beyond that, it's very easy to play. Experienced OCS players can probably play it in an hour. Which would be a better introduction to BCS. Valley of Tears or Panzer's Last Stand. Those are apparently the only two available at that time. And of course, you can use Vassal, as Danny points out. So both of these are designs by Carl. I have both of them. I'm really interested in trying Valley of Tears to be complete. Oh yeah, AirCore has 6 scenarios, clarifies Carl. I'm really interested in trying Valley of Tears. Of the Eastern Front games, I think I'm a little more interested topically in Inflection Point than I am Panzer's Last Stand. But then again, I played Hungarian Rhapsody, which is OCS, but it's a related topic, and I had a blast with that. So Doug says he'd go with Panzer's Last Stand, and he's played more BCS than I have. I played a decent amount, but not as much as I would like. I mean, do we ever play as much as we would like? Probably no. So, and as Paul Sin points out, MMP titles across the board have a habit of disappearing from the market. Inflection Point should be good too. I think it's 3 maps. We'll get to talking about Inflection Point once we move on to the upcoming stuff. So, those units are cut to friggin' pieces. But yeah. And yeah, this is true. Both Valley of Tears and Panzer's Last Stand are heavier in terms of game-specific rules than the other games, but not immensely heavier. It's not like there's 50 pages of game-specific rules or anything like that right now. There are, I mean, yeah, some of MMP's bigger games are quite expensive. I won't tell you they're not. But on the other hand, my position has generally been that I will get, at least if it's a BCS, OCS, GCACW, or GTS, I will end up playing it. So I have no problems spending a decent chunk of money. And if I frankly play it once, I'll have gotten my money out of it as far as I'm concerned. Carl clarifies that Inflection Point has a 2-map Kalak battle and a half map for the Cheer River stuff. The Cheer River battles was the topic of Panzer Battles, which was a previous entry in the SCS series, which I actually have played a few turns of, but not a whole game of. So I wasn't crazy about it, but I think I was like, it was like a break between like OCS to OCS, and I think I was just feeling like I would have preferred to play that situation out in OCS. Very nice. Very nice. Half Man for Cheer does sound awesome. All right, so the first game then in the series, version 1 rules, is Last Blitzkrieg. This is the Battle of the Bulge. I want to say the campaign runs through either December 31st or like January 5th or something like that. There's a lot of game here. You can play just the north sector. You can play just the south sector. You can play, I think, the center sector as well. There's just a ton of play value in this, and it plays extraordinarily well. That's not to say that we didn't struggle with the rules. In an anecdote I've mentioned before, we had 3 experienced wargamers, and then we got a 4th player who had played like squad leader, like 15 or 20 years prior, but was not like a veteran wargamer. And I feel like he had less trouble grasping the novel mechanics present in BCS than the rest of us did. The rest of us, we kept having to look stuff up just for points of, is it really, is this really how it works? Yeah, okay, that's how it works. So, and it all works. Sometimes, which is something I've seen with Dean's designs from time to time, sometimes you'll see a mechanic and it'll look so weird that you'll be like, there's no way this is going to work. And then it does, because Dean was a genius. So, excellent. BCS Cheer is very cutthroat, different than the SCS Panzer Battles. That sounds fantastic. And I agree with this too, actually. This is going to be cool to see, I think. I've heard this statistic as well. And I think Panzer Battles was 2 maps. Might have been 4, but I'm remembering 2, at least. I may be misremembering. All right, so first game number 1 in the series, Last Blitzkrieg. It is out of print. It is hard to get. BGG. Here's our 539.95 from Noble Knight. Somebody's selling it in the UK for 100 in like new condition, and there's only 2 copies available on BGG at this moment. Let's look at this one. This says very good. Very good. Yeah, okay, so a punched copy going for 125. So if you only need Last Blitzkrieg, this is where to get it. Perhaps if assuming it to be complete. These are actually really good too. This is what's RVT Wargames. He's done a number of very good, like, mechanical analysis videos of BCS. I would watch Doug's stuff first, but I would also watch the RVT Wargames stuff once you have maybe played a little and want to learn more of how to optimize what you are attempting to get done. All right, so let's see here. All right, so Doug asks Carl if he wants, if he thinks an Operation Mars BCS game could be doable, or Second Kharkov. Carl, whatever. Just, you know, if these are viable, cool, I'll buy them. Carl says that learning BCS initially can be difficult, but once you understand it, you will figure out the procedure for activations and the turn sequence. And when the interesting. Well, one of many interesting and novel features about BCS is that the way the mechanics interact with the units that you are moving around and controlling reflects the way those types of units actually got used on the World War II battlefield, and in the case of Valley of Tears, the 73 October War. And I really like that. It really puts you in the headspace of overall commander, as you're kind of in that headspace going from turn to turn over the course of the entire setting. But once you have a specific formation activating, it really puts you into the headspace of the commander of that, because you'll know, hey, I have to set objectives. Right? I mean, you don't have to, but if you aren't, then you are somewhat limited in what you can actually get done. You may need to set objectives. You'll probably almost certainly get move somewhere if you aren't setting objectives. And you have to make sure that your supply lines are not horrifically tangled up behind you. You can deal with a little bit of it, but if those snafu modifiers start to add up, it can really hamper you. There are ways to mitigate that, like air supply, not the band, actually pair-dropping supplies to the units, and you can use those to get positive DRMs on the snafu roll, at least in some games in the series. But if you're at like -5 on snafu, man, I don't know if I'd want to waste the air points on that at that point. So you have to get used to the ideas that your formations will get worn down in terms of unit strength, in terms of steps, in terms of fatigue. Your units will be generally way more effective at the beginning of the game than they are later in the game. You really see this in Last Blitzkrieg too, with this German machine that just blows forward, and I guarantee they're going to get bogged up down somewhere. I did, so I guarantee they're going to get bogged down and have to fight their way through it, or not, as happened to me. So Carl doesn't have enough background for an answer at this time on that. Carl says Inflection Point does have air supply for the Germans. I'm all out of love. That I can't help that pops into my head. I have actually seen Air Supply perform live at halftime of a Cleveland Browns game. Don't ask me who made that scheduling decision, but it happened. So, but yeah, okay, so Volume 2 in the series, and this was actually the first one that I played. Baptism by Fire. This is Kasserine Pass, so Germans versus Americans. And the Germans are, they have veteran units at this point. The Americans, this is their kind of first ground combat in Europe and North Africa, and they don't perform particularly well. The Americans, that is, don't perform particularly well historically. That's weird. They only the Browns could be encouraged to play better by Air Supply at halftime, let me tell you. The Bay City Rollers had at least 2 listenable songs, and that's about it. So, Baptism by Fire I've played as well. Do we have a good map image here? This is also out of print. This is not a bad map image. You could see this is North Africa, right? So this is, after the landings in the amphibious landings in 42, the Americans kind of move east across North Africa and tangle with the Germans at Kasserine Pass, and that's what's going on here. So now I played this one with Fucko, and I feel there was a lot of, this was my first contact with BCS actually playing it, and it was a lot of head scratching. I'm not gonna lie. At that time, however, I think Doug's last Blitzkrieg series wasn't out yet. So when the time came to play the third game in the series, there's video on this, folks. You can check it out in the channel history. Brazen Chariots. I think we did 2 or 3 different scenarios of this. We didn't do the campaign game. We did a couple of different scenarios. And we had a lot of fun with it. And I think Dean himself popped into the chat once or twice as well, which was quite a treat and gave us, some fatherly advice, as the case may be. Mr. John Madison, thanks for stopping by. Baptism by Fire has units from the UK 6th Armored Division. I'm not sure how this works because it never came up in our games. I've only ever played it that one time, and we played it one of the shorter scenarios. And we weren't really sure what to make of it. It seemed so weird at the time. And what Baptism by Fire, that is. And then things started to make sense when the time came to play Brazen Chariots. And I think we still hit some stumbling. If you watch those videos, you'll see we still hit some stumbling blocks regarding things like, what's the actual rule called? Standoff support, which is another one of those things that I think did change in the later editions of the rules. We were super confused about that. So let's see. All right. And then the fourth game, and I'll also point out that we actually ran this at Origins last year as our big marquee game. This year, I am not running the big marquee game. So there will be several big marquee games happening in the Wargame HQ area at Origins, and I am only responsible for 3 of the smaller ones. So stand up. Yes. And actually, this is what we said. I'm like, this feels a bit busted. And that's, I might have been a direct quote from either me or Pat, my opponent, in that game regarding the 88s, because these are the units that this applies to. There may be other units that it applies to too, but in Brazen Chariots, I can't remember anything else other than 88s that behaved that way. Panzer's Last Stand. So this is a designed by Carl, and it is on basically Operation Conrad 1 and 2, which occur east of Budapest in 45. In this case, it's 45. I want to say that Hungarian Rhapsody actually starts in late 44, but I might be misremembering that too. And you can see a pretty nice shot here of some actual gameplay. Another thing that I will strongly recommend, you can download these from BGG and maybe from Multiman. These formation cards that kind of store the status markers, which are generally given by formation rather than by individual unit. We found these very helpful to just keep track of everything. I would actually rotate the cards once the unit was finished, so that I never have to look at it again until the following turn. We also used, you can download these as well. There are unit loss charts with little checkboxes for each unit, so you can mark them off as those units take hits. In terms of like playing your turns, I actually don't think it's a big deal to use the Pollard markers, the come with the game, the rotary markers that lay under the unit and tell you how many steps are left in that unit. However, when it comes time to hand out replacements, then you have to know who's down and by how much. And so you could potentially have a situation where you're looking at every single unit. That's way easier to deal with those loss charts. One thing I would like to see on the loss charts, and next time I play OCS or BCS, I'm going to actually make these, or I'll just get a couple of different colors of highlighter and handle it, is I would like to see which units can be replaced with armor replacements versus non-armored replacements. There isn't a big rolling game, but there are numerous very large games. Yeah, that's what I thought. Debrecen is absolutely where it started. I mean, I don't know. To be honest, I'm tremendously fond of OCS, but I think BCS has a lot to say, and I think what it says as a system in terms of, you know, keeping clear supply lines and formation management and keeping your formations from getting all tangled up together, which is something that a lot of games do not care at all about. I really liked those features of BCS, and I could see me potentially playing more BCS than OCS, but that hasn't happened up to this point. I still like both systems and will be happy to buy whatever anybody wants to do for either system. Yes, I forget who this is, but you can order. So the ones that you see in the picture here those are the printed ones that somebody, you know, downloaded and printed themselves or went to Staples and printed. You can order them on actual cardstock from somebody, and I've got those for all the games through, I think, AeroCore. I think. So, and Doug prefers BCS. So, Case Blue is expensive unless you win it for free. So, I'm just saying. They do have some low price point games too. I mean, those are set up. Those products are set up that way. Chris Houston is the fellow who's doing these. I don't have a link to that site. Houston or Holton or something like that. I forget. So, all right. So, Panzer's Last Stand. Again, I haven't played this. There is more in the way of game-specific rules here than there are in other games in the series. But I don't feel like it's like a meaningfully more complicated. You might say it's slightly more complicated. And for a new player, that can be an important distinction. But it's not like if this is a 4 out of 5, that's a bad example. Let's say this is a 6 out of 9 complexity for AeroCore, right? Panzer's Last Stand is still a 6 out of 9. And maybe it's a 6.3 instead of a 6.1. However, in AeroCore, you've got a lot less to worry about that's outside of the main core rules. Now, in AeroCore specifically, well, I guess we'll segue over to AeroCore. In AeroCore specifically, there's a couple of things that you need to be aware of. Units at Fatigue 3 and 4 behave differently in AeroCore than they do in other games in the series based on the series rules. And when you move from AeroCore to a different game, that might throw you. But if you are aware of it, then I think you will, in fact, be totally fine. And Panzer's Last Stand uses a different... I don't even know if different is quite the word I would use, because I don't know that it's that different. But it is a somewhat more nuanced activation system than appeared in the previous games in this series. There's some additional variables that you have some degree of control over in Panzer's Last Stand. And because I haven't played it, I don't want to comment on it further than that, but it is on the docket of things to do. It's just a question of when that's going to happen, right? Now, AeroCore occurs in France, southern France. I'm not sure if southern France, because I'm not sure exactly where this is on the map of France. But this is a battle that came out of... Yeah, southern France is overstating the question. So this is post D-Day, and you've got the U.S. 4th Armored Division, who are veterans at this point, coming up against like a couple of conf groups that are mostly Panthers, as I recall, but the crews are not nearly as experienced as the 4th Armored guys in the Shermans. So It's a really interesting interplay and a really interesting reversal from, say, something like Last Blitzkrieg, where you've got, you do have 4th Armor Division in Last Blitzkrieg, and it does show up, and it is still good, but it's even better in Ericourt. East Central France. There you go. West of Nancy. Watched it, watch again, John, if you want to kind of get a sense of how BCS plays, watch Doug's video series of Last Blitzkrieg once again. Justin Guard, thanks for stopping by, Justin. Great to see you. He has done a couple of videos on GBOH over there as well. That is true. Now, as previously mentioned, Ericourt is a one-map game. The counters, unlike all the other games in the series, which are half-inch counters, these are 5/8-inch counters, and the hexes are bigger accordingly, which is interesting because it gives me like markers, bigger markers. This is all the counters, right? It's not an enormous game in terms of unit, counter density. And in fact, BCS in general is way lower counter density than, say, OCS. You will have a lot fewer counters. The scale is different, and that's a big part of the reason why. But you will have a lot fewer combat unit counters floating around in BCS than you will in OCS, regardless of scale. All right, so the latest game in the series is Valley of Tears on the 73 Arab-Israeli War. And this is a really, really neat-looking game. And again, I haven't played it yet. There are 4 maps in the game, and there are 2 theaters. So this is a kind of an ideal game to play with 2 teams of 2. And the way you would do that is you would have 2 Israeli players, one playing on this map, the Sinai map, and the other player playing on the Golan Heights map, and the same thing with the 2 Arab players, where you've got on the 2 separate maps. I believe you might be able to transfer units between them, but they are not contiguous, right? You've got these 3 big maps, and then the one single map for the Golan Heights. The Israelis are very good. They have very good equipment. The Arab opposing forces have less good equipment. But their numbers are higher, and other than that, the way the victory conditions work, they function very differently on the 2 maps. So what you are trying to do to get victory on the Golan Heights map is different than what you're trying to do on the Sinai map. So, I mean, I might agree. I don't know about Last Blitzkrieg explicitly, but I think BCS might be Dean's most brilliant design, to be completely honest. I need to take a closer look at Knock Paris as well. Yeah, so this is interesting. I don't really feel like BCS is particularly marker heavy, but then I have played GBOH, which is very marker heavy. So, that's a factor. I don't feel like OCS is as marker heavy as GBOH. But BCS is less marker intensive than OCS is, especially if you play with the loss charts as opposed to playing with the rotary counters to mark steps for the units. All right. And as Carl points out, the 2 fronts in Valley of Tears play very differently. The other thing, I'm not sure if I said this or not, you could totally play these individually. You could just play Sinai or just play Golan and have a great experience right there. Oh, interesting. I think Dean wrote an article about this at one point. Carl says that the games that Dean was most proud of were Last Blitzkrieg, DAC, Last Chance for Victory, and Case Blue. All outstanding games. Last Chance for Victory is a magisterial game on the topic of Gettysburg. It is fabulous, and my copy will never go anywhere. And it's also going for a giant chunk of change on the secondary market. This is true. It's not really possible to do this conflict with the series air rules, which are just kind of abstract points. It's not as different in as far as I could tell, it doesn't look as different in Valley of Tears as I thought it was going to. But there is more detail in the air system for Valley of Tears than there were in any of the other games in the series, just based on when the war happened, right? I've seen this, the Great War Channel. And DAC is one of the OCS games that I have not played, actually. Will not fit on my table if I use all 5 maps, but I'll figure something out. It'll be fine. Ooh, nice. Eric Schaefer got a last chance for victory in Shrink from Games Plus and Mount Prospect for $75. That is a great price. That is a fantastic price. And the third winner, and I guess Forgotten Battles as well, is a major culprit of deforestation, as we all know. So, all right. So we are at the midway point of the show, folks. So what we're going to do now is hear from our good friends at Noble Knight Games. So take it away.
Here at Noble Knight Games, we've been carefully growing the world's largest selection of board games, role-playing games and dice, war games, miniatures and paints, card games, and more, going on 25 years now. Our rustic castle contains more game and hobby goodness than you can shake a stick at, complete with careful packaging and the finest customer service the land can provide. You can buy, sell, trade from anywhere in the world, just like nature intended. Noble Knight Games.
All right, big thanks to our good friends at Noble Knight Games, the official sponsor of the Counter Clipping Show. Now, for those who missed the beginning of the show, we did have a campaign sort of update. We were going to gun for War in Europe Revised from Decision, but it's out of stock at Noble Knights. We're going to roll the store credit over into the next campaign, which is Case Blue. Now, longtime viewers will realize that this entire show started because I got a copy of Case Blue. So it's not a copy of Case Blue for me. Once it is in hand and has been examined for accuracy and completeness and all that stuff, we will give it away on this show. So the sooner we get the store credit through the affiliate link that's in the video description, the better. So, and we are... That was the first counterclipping show, actually. I was completely rudderless in that show if you watched that thing. So it feels like kind of a long time ago now. I mean, it's close to 5 years ago, to be honest. I can't stop anybody the person that wins it from, I can't stop them from flipping it, but it would be lame if they do. So Case Blue giveaway, that is correct. Correctamundo. It's not tonight, but whenever it's here, that we will pick it up from Noble Knight, and we will... I can't stop anybody. I will look down upon you if you do that. So, but if you, like I said, I can't stop anybody. All right, Eric Schaefer, thanks for stopping by. We'll catch you on the flip side. And like I said, I kind of wanted a way, because I've had so much support from so many people over the span of this show is, kind of the real growth of the channel over the last, say, 5 or 6 years. And I'd like to be able to give a little bit back, right, to everybody who has supported the channel and the shows and all that stuff. I would love to that's what I said. I'm like, I feel like crap a couple days ago to the wife. And she's like, well, what do you need? And I said, I need a week off. like maybe 10 days just off of everything. And she's like, well, take it then. I'm like, I got too much to do. I can't do that right now. Maybe we can do that after Origins. So yes, we will, in fact, at some point in the coming weeks, my guess is a month or 2 from now, maybe 3 months, whenever that amount of credit is available, we will be giving away a copy of Case Blue. So, for those who missed it, and I'll mention it again at the end of the, there's something to this, yeah. You've got a pretty aggressive development slate, from my recollection, Carl, of upcoming BCS games. Between Inflection Point, you've got the Sedan 40 game, you've got the Normandy game, which is pretty much the Cobra game as far as I can tell. You've got the Veliki Luki game, and there's at least 3 or 4 other ones that I'm not even remembering. So there's like a lot in the pipeline at various stages of development. This is possible, actually. I don't know if I'm going to take time off, but it is possible that we will do like a best of show or something like that. So, BCS Operation Compass would be an interesting situation. First the Italians attacked, then the British. Do we have Operation Compass in Brazen Chariots? I don't think so. And Carl, you are all of the honchos right now, except for Lee. And is there even anybody else that's honchoing besides you and Lee Forrester? I'm not BCS Fiesta Bowl. There you go. I'm not sure how Carl can keep all that straight personally, but that's just me. Yeah, excellent. Stacking Limit will be starting his own show on Tuesday nights, probably in the fall. Excellent, excellent. We will tune in when you do. All right, I missed something. Chris Withers is mentioned here, whose name I know in relation to GCACW. I mean, I wasn't planning to. I would rather not, but Chris Anthony. Oh, okay. Is that news? I thought I'm not sure I had heard that. Chris Anthony is the honcho for Line of Battle. Chris Withers is one of the GCACW design team folks. So that's good. That's one thing that Carl doesn't have to actually manage himself again. So that's good. And I'm very excited about No Turning Back as well. As as folks know, we're in a bit of a financial pinch at the moment. So I had to cancel a lot of pre-orders. I did cancel one, I think. It might have been two. One from MMP, but the ones I kept were Inflection Point and No Turning Back. I'm looking forward to both of those games. All right. Yeah. Well, you could, Brant, but you don't get the time. You're too busy doing other stuff. So I am too busy doing this stuff and the other stuff. So I guess I forgot to mention this because I didn't do an outline for the news bullet points. The Charles S. Roberts Awards 2024 ballot is closed. The results are being tabulated, and we will release via the usual method, meaning there'll be a show that'll be on No Enemies Here, and around the same time, the same evening, I will put out press releases to all of the various usual outlets announcing the winners. There are a couple of things that we have to get done behind the scenes between now and 2 to 3 weeks from now, but that is the target. All right, so Carl says that Chris Anthony is doing a bang-up job on Line of Battle. A Perry bill is being prepared for submission. I heard that was being worked on. That's fantastic. I had no idea that would be that far along at this point. BCS France 1940, the title, The Breaking Point. Are you at all concerned that there's a theme of point in the titles between Inflection Point and Breaking Point? I'd be a little concerned about that, but just from a marketing standpoint. But I don't care. I will buy the game. Based on the description that Carl has provided of this situation, I'm super interested in seeing this actually. So, BCS Point Break. There you go, starring Patrick Swayze. The Point Break is a way better movie than it has any right to be completely honest. I will tell you that we had, to within maybe 2%, we had about as many voters this year as we had last year, which tells me a couple of interesting things. One, all of the posting on social media that I was doing in previous years was not having that big of an impact. So I did very little of that this year. And if there will be news after the awards about, we'll be asking for people to help out with a variety of these kinds of tasks. So I personally can do a lot less. BCS Vanishing Point. There you go. Oh my goodness. There's also, that's fair too. Yeah. That is for Pointification and the Pointer Sisters. How about that? Yeah, well, it is a strong year for Napoleonic games. And a couple other games, several of our topics, it's almost always a good year for World War II, right? It's also a pretty good year for Civil War, to be completely honest. So, the last point. There you go. I'm not sure what the last point would be, but this sounds fantastic. And I will, of course, be obliged to buy it because I'm a BCS fan now. So, John Longshore, thanks so much for the support. All your support, John. It is all much appreciated. And hopefully we won't have to deal with the point things. Now there's points tonight, right? Everybody's getting experience points for participating in the chat, which I believe is not a function that I really needed or asked for, to be honest. So what do we got here? And we've got like a 7-way tie for number 1 at this moment. Gross Point Blank. Yeah, there you go. You're just tied for the top, actually, Brand. So, moving on from Valley of Tears, which really looks cool. Okay, so and I've said this before too, but I feel obliged to say so again because that's what the topic of Valley of Tears is, the 73 October War, the Yom Kippur War. I have one other game on this topic, and that is October War from SPI and S&T from God knows when. I want to say that was Mark Herman's either design or Mark developed it. I don't remember which. So it itself is an interesting game, but I haven't done anything with it. And it's not a topic I know really very much. I mean, I know that it happened. I know the Israelis won, and that's kind of it. So there's a lot of learning opportunity for me in a game like Valley of Tears 2 to kind of get a grasp on what exactly went down from the military standpoint here in this conflict. I'm very much looking forward to getting my this on an actual table. There's just other priorities at the moment that are in the way. I am subscribed to XP to level 3, actually. It might not be on this channel anymore. It might be on the RPG channel. I guess I'll mention that. So for anybody who missed the announcement previously, let's do a couple of links in the chat. Here is a link to the Ardwulf Lair Discord community. If anybody would like to join, just click on that link. It'll be good for a week. If you're watching after the show and you didn't, you still would like a link, an invite to the Ardwulf Lair Discord, where we're having a lot of great conversations, just email me. My email is in the ticker, and I will give you your own personalized invitation. Now, also, I will be starting, even though there's an RPG-facing video attempting to upload even as we speak, and let's see if it has actually succeeded. Maybe? No, it still says it's uploading. We will be starting an RPG-specific channel here. This is a post-Origins thing. We're talking about a rollout in July. I'm working on a content plan, but there's like no launch yet. But if anybody would like to subscribe to that channel for when it does get started, here's a link to that as well. So I'm really delighted with the general tone and atmosphere of the Ardwulf Lair Discord, to be completely honest. There is an RPG Digest Discord as well. I invited specific individuals to that. We will roll that out when we roll the entire channel out. So, Jeff Beeler says Valley of Tears models one of the few post-World War II operation-pitched battles. Last one until the Iran-Iraq War. I guess this is true. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it. Well, few. I mean, you got Korea too, right? And there's some in Vietnam. But this is one where really the outcome's in doubt, right? I do think probably the Israelis have an edge, but you know, if a skilled play on the Arab player's part can easily result in a victory by them. Not to my knowledge, right? But this was a completely new thing. I didn't even notice it till tonight, so don't even ask me about that. All right, so upcoming for BCS is Inflection Point. We got a couple images here that I'll show you, and very nice. I really like what Nico. I assume Nico's in charge of the covers. Carl can correct me if I'm wrong about that. I really like the kind of unified look that MMP has started to give their various series games. I approve of that. It makes them look nice on the shelf, and it makes them visually obvious what series this belongs to. So here is Kalak itself, a little snapshot of the map. Here is possibly the entire map, actually. Well, we're not going to be able to see a whole lot of yeah, it looks like it is the whole map, actually. The whole Kalak map, anyway. We're not going to be able to see a lot of detail on that. Or this one, but this might be the Cheer River map. Indeed it is. So here's your Cheer map. And I think the original plan for Inflection Point was it was just going to be Kalak, and then they realized, you know, the Cheer River stuff would fit right in the box. So let's put that in too. And I think that's a great idea. So thanks, Mike. I appreciate your double subscription. Much appreciated. You will, I'm not sure how much Harn Master you will see, but you will see Harn content, Traveler content. I guess what specific, there may be other specific things that I talk about on the RPG channel. Okay. But the intention is that the games that I will concentrate on will be Traveler and Harn and Ars Magica and Call of Cthulhu and Mythros and RuneQuest and games like that. So you'll definitely see Harn content. All right, catching up on the chat here too. So Carl is in the minority. You are in the minority. He loves the OSS Vietnam Rumor of War from Adam Starkweather and Compass. This is part of the operational scale system or operational scale series or whatever it is. I had this volume of the series, and it is I'll tell you what, the maps are really nice. I very much liked the map, and the game system did not sync with me at all. So it is no longer in the Ardwulf Slayer library. Even Stigler is forced to admit, and folks, Stigler is the Mikey of wargaming. He hates everything. He really thinks the BCS package designs are far and away the best examples to come out of MMP. You know, I don't think he's right about the other part of this either, but that's a lot of what he means is gamers rather than MMP in general. So, okay, cool. COC, Harn and Traveler, very good. But we'll talk. Part of the impetus for doing it as a separate channel is it's algorithmically desirable to like have a channel focus, okay? And I already feel like I've already split in the channel focus over here by talking as much about RPG stuff as I do. But the answer is clearly not to stop talking about RPG stuff. It's to have a different outlet for that stuff. So. All right, so distractions, yeah, RPG distractions later. Well, I mean, it's still got to get mentioned here, but hopefully I will be able to keep the mentions very brief and say, hey, folks, if you're interested in this, go check out the other channel. And then we'll pretty much be good. So, this is pretty good, by the way, this Glenmorangie Lasanta. I like Glenmorangie in general, and I like all of the specialty finished Glenmorangies that I've had. Well, we'll see about this. This is a project. I own the Alien RPG. Well, cool. I mean, hey, you just let Nico go and he'll do fine. He is a talented fellow. I do own the Alien RPG, which I obtained as a resource for Traveler, and it is not that useful for that, I'm afraid. There are some like components and stuff that could be used. All right, Brant, thanks for stopping by. Oh yeah, I know exactly what book you're talking about, actually. I have most, but not all, of the individual modules. I would rather buy the collections, to be completely honest. Hey, that's a pretty nice gift, Alistair, I gotta say. I have not had Johnny Walker Green personally. The To Take Washington box cover is not a good cover, to be honest. I like most of the new GCACW covers. Those are fine. To Take Washington was not great. It has a super weird look. So I don't I don't know if this is actually accurate or not, but go ahead and like the video, folks. That'd be cool. So yeah, I do think that Nico. I have no idea how old Nico is. I don't think he's as old as me. So, which isn't saying as much as it used to. But yeah, I think he's definitely at the leading. Him and Terry Leeds, maybe. I also don't know how old Terry Leeds is. I think are the off the top of my head, the bright young graphic design stars of today's wargaming hobby. As opposed to, the folks who've been around for a long time, like your Rick Barbers and your Charlie Kiblers and your Roger McGowans and, of course, Redmond Simonson. And, there are others as well. So now he's leaving. Don't threaten us with a good time. I believe that the new Cold War game from VUCA is either out or is about to ship. Because there's starting to be video about it. So, and then, of course, Carl's got a whole bunch of stuff in the pipeline that I don't particularly want to go into, but read Carl's blog on BGG, and you will get regular updates on exactly where all this stuff is at in the production pipeline. So... So Nils Johansson, that's another one. Yeah, I've seen a little less work from him. I want to say that Nico has done all of the GTS maps, if I'm not mistaken. I will tell you that one of the reasons I picked up Traces of War in the first place was just because it looks that friggin' good. Oh, good question. I'd have to find that. Give me a second. I might be able to find it. Oh, here it is. Here we go. It is the only blog that I am subscribed to on BGG. There is the link to Carl's blogs. Hans and Carl take over the Nakatomi Plaza. So, worth your time. And I guess that failed to post to Facebook. Mo from Mo's Game Table, thanks for stopping by. We're doing an actual full show tonight. I don't know that I do really admire the functionality of the GTS maps. But my personal favorite, I've said this many times, and my opinion could change, it just hasn't yet. My personal favorite wargame maps are the Charlie Kibler GCACW maps. I do think that Rick Barber, in his one entry in the series, which is Grant Takes Command, did a good job, but I like Charlie's work better. It's more standardized, and it kind of all fits graphically together in a cohesive way that I appreciate. So, you should try the system, Stigler, because it really is a good system. It really is different. It shows some really interesting things. You shouldn't be swayed by box graphics, but all of us are sometimes. I guarantee that definitely some people who were otherwise interested, like myself, otherwise interested in Operation Husky, saw that legendarily bad Operation Husky box and said, no, you're not buying that. I know I did. So, I don't think this is actually true. The Second World War stuff is expensive. Grindyard Simulations is pretty expensive. Red Sash is pretty expensive. Marshall Enterprises is pretty expensive, but frankly, the other three that have just been mentioned are more expensive than Marshall Enterprises. I think Marshall's new small game for Labatai has just been released as well. There should be, because so many people went blind from seeing the cover. And I agree with this too. It really is refreshing. It shows us a different angle on operational wargaming that we haven't really seen elsewhere. I do think it has predecessors, games that it sort of borrows from, but it's also uniquely its own thing. I would say that an inspiration for BCS, and again, Carl will feel free to correct me. I would imagine GCACW might have been an influence, right? Because it's got that sort of back and forth of activations. Now, it's more random in GCACW than it is in BCS, where it is just back and forth. Holy shit, Eric Goebel, thanks so much for the support. Much appreciated. We'll have to do more of these. I do want to do so there's only been 2 like series spotlights so far, this and OCS. So I'd like to do a Labatai one and a GTS one and all these other things. So hopefully, Eric, I will be costing you even more money. In the meantime, however, the support is much appreciated. And I think this is. So Doug says, of all the games I mentioned, the physical components of GTS are far superior. They are really nice. So you're at least getting quality all the way around with GTS. And again, I agree with this. I'm going to do a video on the condition of my GTS Utah, by the way. I'm not going to go into that tonight. It got wet is the short version of the story. It's fine. It's only the box, but the box is fucking trash. So I'm not actually throwing it out, but man, the box is in bad shape. What it was is it was in the backseat of the car. The window was cracked and it rained inside, and the box got pretty wet. The components are fine. It is all dried out now. So I'll do a video on it. Spotlight on BAR. I only own one BAR game, that is Prague. I would like to try BAR at some point. Frankly, if you can handle Labatai, you can handle BAR. And Labatai is not that complicated, really, unless you're playing like the regs with like all the options and all that other stuff. So. All right, I'm trying to get caught up on the chat here. Carl recommends BCS. I mean, I think we've gotten a whole bunch of people who will enthusiastically recommend BCS, as I will at this point. Stigler, I swear you mentioned this at least 3 times every week, is 1914 Knock Paris. So clearly I need to do a video on that, because there's a market for it, and it does look nice. It looks really impressive. I picked it up in a trade. I don't actually remember what I traded. I think it was a trade. I could be wrong. There's so many little side deals, and people give me stuff from time to time, and there's trades and store credit here and there and all this other stuff. So it does tend to be a little difficult to keep track of exactly where any given product came from, unless there's something that makes that acquisition stand out in its own right, regardless of independently of the game. All right, Brian Jarvis bought 2 of the Library of Napoleonic Battles games after watching Wardrobe and Hexy knock a game out live. That's a very smooth playing. Once you get the hang of it, it's a very smooth playing game. You do kind of need to get the hang of it for a pretty different reason than, say, BCS, which has a number of mechanics that are just very different from things that we've seen in the past. And the implementation of those is sometimes radically different from what we've seen in the past. But at the same time, Library of Napoleonic Battles is much more conventional, but it's also got a decent amount of depth to it, so that you are going to have to play it a few times before you feel competent, right? All right, and Carl says that he doesn't know if Dean got inspiration from other games because he never got a chance to play other games, which sounds completely Dean-like, but I am positive Dean was aware of a lot of the other things that were going on in elsewhere in wargaming at the same time. So yeah, I gotta look through this. Just a guard. This is a good point. Library of Napoleonic Battles is good on Vassal because of the hidden units. Can you get the modules on the Vassal site now? Or you still have to go to Limey Yank Games to get them. I haven't checked that in a while. Yeah, the trouble with that is I'm not sure exactly when Knock Paris cuts off, but you will eventually, that whole front will bog down at some point and will cease to be interesting to play by a lot of people's definitions. So Charles Latoro likes the Library of Napoleonic Battles as well. And that's another series I would really like to see some instructional content on, and we really haven't seen anything. All right, Justigard says the Vassal modules are still on Limey Yank. The No BS Wargaming show sounds like a good idea to me. We have a lot of BS here, folks, and I appreciate folks coming up with it, putting up with it, I should say. So BCS is the equivalent of La Bataille for Napoleonics except World War II. This is exceptionally convoluted, John. No, I would say not. La Bataille, remember that the basics of the system of La Bataille go all the way back to like 1974. So 74, 75, something like that. So it's not exactly a progressive design, if you know what I'm saying. Oh, very nice. Revolution? Do you mean VUCA? Because VUCA did 1914 knock Paris? So, well, I'm glad somebody's here for the bullshit, because I put out a lot of bullshit. Just ask my wife. So, yeah, this is, Moskva was, yeah, so the first La Bataille game is La Bataille de la Moskva. It's 74, 75, something like that. It is not the first monster game, but it is a very early monster game. So, the new chair, well, none of these chairs are new. I'm now sitting on a folding chair, which is at least not squeaky. So there's that. Another piece of news that, I mean, it's not exactly urgent news, but Against the Odds magazine intends to wrap up their operation and basically close shop in something like 6 issues or something like that. So if you're interested in any of the Against the Odds stuff, you should probably push the button. I want to say the ones from them that I'm most interested in are probably the Philip Jelly Solitaire Roman games. I'd like to get the other 2. I've only got the first one at this point. So folding chairs not great for my back, but the busted chairs weren't great for my back either. So, oh, this sucks. I've been waiting for this for years. This was supposed to come out using the Mike Resch system. Well, I don't know if it was going to be published by GMT or not, but the previous games that had been published by Mike Resch through GMT, and then he switched over to VUCA, which I'm like, okay, cool, we're going to see it, awesome. But now it's on hold because he can't get enough playtesters. That's lame, folks. Go run that guy down and offer to playtest that game. There's some changes that have happened inside the lifetime of the Library of Napoleonic Battles, like in the last several years, that aren't like changes from Napoleon's last battles anymore. Artillery reaction is mentioned here. There was shock combat before, at least as soon as I started looking at the game system. But the reaction artillery was like, whoa, wait a minute, that's not even on my player aid card. And it turns out it was just an out-of-date player aid card. Yeah, there you go. Games are unfinished, folks. If you're unhappy with the state of those affairs, help this dude out. Finish his Romania 1916 game. It sounds cool. So, I've got Beyond Waterloo, though. But this actually looks pretty cool. So this is, I think, the conceit here is Napoleon wins Waterloo, and then what happens, right? And I'd really like to explore that. So I'm pretty much aligned with Mo on this particular topic. Now Stigler, for all his bitching, did put his money where his mouth is and designed his own game. So we have to give him credit and immense props for that. I'm not keeping up with this, but I don't know where you go to keep up with this. Presumably Consim World, but I'm not hanging out at Consim World on anything like a regular basis, so I'm not sure. Please note, if you volunteer to playtest for Paul Hetterer, make sure you follow through. Okay, noted. Fortunately, I don't have time to playtest anything, so That is fantastic. That is fantastic. I'm really working on the wife. I gotta tell you, she's not gonna do war games. I can tell you that. But RPGs, I can probably talk her into that. So, this would have been good, actually. I don't know, Stigler. What is your official position on pre-rounded counters? I mean, this makes sense. Like I said, I haven't really been keeping up with this on BGG, so. That's got to be goddamn disappointing. I'll tell you that. So, for anybody who is in the UK, is anybody here tonight in the UK and went to UK Games Expo this past weekend? Because I did not know that it was like a 40,000+ people attendee event. I don't really know what goes on there. I assume it's a bunch of miniature stuff and a bunch of role-playing stuff, and what else? I have the vaguest idea. Well, I will agree with this. At least the ones that we've seen so far, at least the ones that I've seen, I will say that they are less efficient in terms of presentation. So you get what that means is you get way fewer counters per sheet. And that can be problematic, particularly for bigger games, like, for instance, Lock and Load's Glory and Empire First Victories, which is in there, and which I am going through, and it's going to be, and frankly, any content on it is going to be a post-Origins development, because I've just got too much other stuff going on right now. But it is kind of at the top of the list once Origins is over with. And of course, understand that once Origins is over with, the Charles S. Roberts Awards for the year will also be over with. So, Academy Games does pre-rounded counters. Lock and Load does pre-rounded counters. Glory and Empire is all pre-rounded. I think it's all pre-rounded. Maybe there's some regular counters in there, but I don't think so. I could be wrong. GMT has done games with both pre-rounded and non-rounded counters. And of course, then I go in and clip the square corners. So understand, though, that the laser cutting now, like the stuff that Steve from Blue Panther is using, he had to find a special. That's why they use that stock that feels unusual. There's nothing wrong with it at all. It just feels different than the stock that everybody else's counters are on. And that's because they are laser cut. And they chose that material because it doesn't burn like all the other laser cut counters do. And they smell like an ashtray when you open the box. This sounds intriguing. Francisco, nice to see you here. Thanks for stopping by. Bert Batus was up at Noble Knight Thursday. Got a lot of games, traded a bunch of games. Frank was there. How about that? That's cool. I know Frank. I've met Frank a couple of times. Frank was one of the Origins auctioneers back in the day when Origins had an auction, and I interacted with Frank on a number of occasions as in connection with the Origins auction. So I think this is fair too. I had this crazy idea that I was telling of course I'm bullshitting her, right? So, but apparently I'm good at bullshitting because nobody realizes, hey, he's not serious when he says, honey, I'd really like to get like some kind of mask that I can wear so I can vape when I'm cutting the grass. And she looks at me like I'm fucking nuts, because of course it's an asinine idea. But then I, of course, go on to describe this massive Darth Vader looking thing putting out huge clouds of smoke out in the front yard and stuff like that. And then I think she got the picture that I was not being serious. So I have seen hexagonal counters for a number of games. Off the top of my head, a bunch of the, a bunch is a bit of a stretch, but like the Here I Stand series games typically, or Napoleonic Wars typically have some hexagonal counters, but those are point-to-point games too. Hexagonal counters are unusual, but not that weird. Now, I will agree with, you don't have to punch it, you can play it on Vessel. But I will say that, the games are there to be played. And if you want to just collect, cool. But that's, to me, I'm not really trying to do that. I just find myself doing that an annoying percentage of the time. I hate the corner nibs. I hate the corner nibs. I suppose this is true. This sounds like a job for the belt sander. Oh God. I mean, I'm still dealing with this, right? This is one of the reasons why I will not buy, generally speaking, an Avalon Hill game that isn't unpunched, because just it's a huge hassle to punch Avalon Hill counters. You never know whether you're going to have to cut them all out, and they're going to drop this enormous amount of fuzz in wherever you're clipping them. So it's a real hassle. Well, I think speaking for, I don't want to speak for Mr. Herman, but I think Mark would agree with you on this, because people keep asking Mark questions about some Pacific War rule, and Mark keeps saying it's in the book. It's in the book. This is in the book, and he's right. It is in the book. So all right. So one thing we got to do right now is go over to Twitch and ban this same fucking Nimrod that keeps putting bullshit in this chat. There you go. Block. Have a nice day. So that's gone. All right. So Jeff is asking Carl to sum up the BCS pipeline. Looks like Gala, France 1940, and then Normandy. Then Market Garden. I got to tell you, I forgot to mention this when we were talking about the upcoming stuff. I am all over BCS Market Garden. I think BCS will do an amazing job at Market Garden, and I am incredibly excited about the prospect of having that game. And yeah, that's one of the things that's in the pipeline as well. It could be the same. It's probably bots anyway. It doesn't matter. Just that the mods can't get rid of Nimrods on Twitch, so I got to go over and do it. Holy shit. Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm a little paranoid about using a rotary cutter, but I've never cut myself on a rotary cutter. But I have murdered several counters using a rotary cutter. I don't like, lots of games have round counters. Most of the GMT point-to-point games, let's not say most, let's say many of the GMT point-to-point games contain round counters. We're talking stuff like Napoleonic Wars, Here I Stand, Wellington, Kutuzov, the other spin-offs of Here I Stand, all that stuff. So BCS Cobra needs to be rehauled, which, maybe is not that surprising, but I'm, at the same time, I like Normandy games too, so I will be happy to buy that. And as I've said, I'm happy to buy whatever Carl would like to give us in the BCS pipeline. Yeah, these are German vehicles for Dinant that we have been clipping this evening. I might need to look at this. Ooh, that's interesting. Yeah, so for those who don't know or don't remember, and I didn't know this at first, I found this out years later. The original version of Axis and Allies from Nova had counters, not miniatures. So, well, understand, Mo, that for many, the attraction of the hobby appears to be to find things to complain about. I don't know that we are exceptional as a hobby in that regard, since every other sphere of influence or interest seems to have the same phenomenon. I think that's a bit pointless to me. If I got to be a miserable prick, then I might as well find something that's not going to make me a miserable prick. Whether that's whatever that is. If that's not wargaming, then it's, model railroads or football or, whatever it is. It's very difficult to do that if you're from Cleveland, Ohio with football, however, just so you know, because the Browns suck. That Browns game was many, many, many years ago. I want to say I may or may not even have been in high school when that occurred. Now, I've seen other people butcher their counters with rotary cutters as well. So Stigler, who is into these games, says speed of heat is less complicated than fighting wings. That is a bit weird. Yeah, I don't know that it's so much a 21st century thing as it is definitely, however, an internet thing. And there's a certain, connection to this particular generation or time period that comes with. So yeah, even the garden hose people have sometimes been infected by the phenomenon on the internet where you must find something to despise and complain about loudly. So now, if I'm going to use a steel ruler, then I might as well just use the utility knife. I've got like a million utility knives. I have used them for things in the past. I just don't normally use them for counters. If I have to bust counters or I have to cut counters out of the sprues, which has happened with this ASL stuff, I typically use something like this, which is one of these little craft knives with the breakaway blades, so you could snap a new fresh sharp tip onto it at any time, and that is enormously helpful. All right, Frank, thanks for stopping by. Frank asks, what do we think about mixing counter sizes and shapes, like, among other games, there are a few other games, The Longest Day did this, for example, like Thunder in the East. I found it gimmicky and unnecessary. If it had been slightly more restrained, I probably wouldn't have had anything to complain about. Like if, for example, we had only had the round HQs and then the 3 different sizes of square units, depending on the size of the actual fighting unit, I probably could have lived with that. But then everything else in the box has its own unique shape and size and everything too. And it does become, I feel like it was distracting more than anything else. That was not my biggest complaint about those counters. My biggest complaint was that they fell apart. So I think Frank's trying to be funny with that comment, but yeah, I think it's, like I said, I think it's an internet thing. I don't think it's necessarily generational, but I think it is correlated with today's era, right? Yeah, it just seemed like it seemed like really overdone and unnecessary, and like there's just a million different shapes and sizes of counters in that thing. It's really weird. Yeah, actually, this is a very good example. Carl clarifies he's talking about pot. I'm not sure. I'll have to talk to Dan about that. POG, which is presumably Paths of Glory. So Paths of Glory has 2 different counter sizes. There are half-inch counters for like divisional-sized units and some markers and stuff, and 5/8-inch counters, which are like army-sized units. So they are the bigger units. And a number of the other Paths of Glory family of games have done that as well. The one I used to have, Crusade and Revolution, does that too, I believe. So that I don't mind it at that level. It's just I feel like Thunder in the East specifically went way overboard with it. So whining is worth negative XP. That's what that is. There are sometimes you have to point problems out. I mean, that's not whining. But you start to wonder when somebody doesn't do anything but complain. All right, so Robert O is capable of misinterpreting all rules, which, that happens. South China, man, these things, I don't know why you would need a rotary cutter to pop these out of the sheets. These things just exploded out of the counter sheets in my experience. Yeah, Francisco, like I said, in something like Paths of Glory, where there's 1 or 2, maybe even 3 different sizes of counters to reflect the size of the actual unit that's depicted on the counter, I don't have an issue with that. That's okay. I mean, it might make storage and stacking a little bit weird, but it's not usually a big problem. Whereas with Thunder in the East, it's actually a problem, in my opinion. But again, my bigger problem with those counters was that everybody's counters delaminated and fell apart. Well, yeah, but there's only 2 different sizes, right? And Florian Empire's like that too. There are 2 different sizes is fine. I can deal with maybe even 3 different sizes. Cool. But if we're talking about 7 different sizes and 6 different shapes and different combinations of the two, I feel like we must have spent a considerable amount of development effort figuring that out that could have been better spent elsewhere. So, and this is reasonable too. And things like GBOH have different counter sizes too. But again, they're normally fairly standardized. They're either like 1 inch by 1/2 inch counters for like phalanxes and stuff, or they're 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch counters, and they're just, whatever they are, cavalry or whatever it is. And then very rarely you will see some weird counter like that Theban unit that is something like 1 inch by 1.5 inches. It's weird. But it's like one unit that's like that too. So the Theban, the Sacred Band of Thieves, that's what that was. Now, I will also point out that I have at least one game with counters that are 1/2 inch by 1/4 inch. Struggle of Nations. And that sucks. I see what they were trying to do with it. It sucks. They're very difficult to handle even with tweezers. What a hassle. So, you know what? If somebody has a different experience with a game like this, then more power to them. That's cool. This did not work in that way for me. Is this Fire in the Sky? Yeah, but if this is the game I'm thinking, then Fire in the Sky has got so few mark counters in it anyway, that relatively few, that I'm not sure I would have a big problem with that. And I have not seen the Phalanx Edition at all. I've got games where this would actually work. You just shake the box really hard and all the counters are punched. Pax Britannica did have different shaped counters as well. And in fact, I've got Pax Britannica. As I recall, there are square, round, and triangular counters in Pax Britannica. I've played it once. It was maybe 6 years ago or something like that. It's an interesting game. The rule book, in fairness, the rule book fell apart too. The maps were nice. Yeah, I mean, I get where they're trying to go with the development. Although I don't know, since Alan's passing, I don't know what's going to go on with that series. But yeah, I do think, among other things, as Mo mentions, there's like a lot of additional post Twilight in the East or Thunder in the East development that has gone on with that series, and I think that does turn some people off. It didn't really turn me off, but it did cause me to decide to wait until like more of the series comes out to consider give that a series a closer look. And like I said, I'm not 100% sure that that's even going to happen right now. Struggle of players, yeah, players are struggling. I see, and the hexes are super tiny too. The hexes are like half-size hexes. It's insane. And the boards are those terrible Avalon Hill one-piece boards that, like, if a cup of coffee walks down the sidewalk outside your house that the game is stored in, the maps will warp. Just atrocious presentation of that. The game itself has supposed to have some issues too, but it's an interesting topic. It's an operational treatment. It's part of the Campaigns of Napoleon series. It's an operational treatment of the 1813-14 campaigns. And that's interesting. I think that's awesome. But I just didn't think it worked physically. Oh, this is unfortunate. I have always just fixed, if it's just like a counter or two, which does happen from time to time, I usually just fix it with white glue. Yeah, I don't know. I hope this isn't the case. I wouldn't be shocked if this is the case. Alan's had just so much energy. He was like a comet of wargaming that was just blazed across the sky, right? The energy of that dude was just incredible. And I don't know if this very ambitious project will continue or can continue without that degree of energy. Frank got a copy of Undaunted North Africa, and all the counters and cards were loose in the box. Under $10. You got under $10. Who cares? Mike's rulebook fell apart, but his counters were fine. That's good for you. But my counters fell apart, and Lee's counters fell apart, and the Lacarenza brothers' counters fell apart, and their rulebooks. So yours is one of the 4 copies I've had reports on where the counters didn't fall apart. The rulebook should have been spiral bound, and I would like to see. I would like to see more companies use that. Spiral binding for rulebooks. In general, I think that perfect bound rulebooks are bad in wargaming. I've got several games with perfect bound. That's the square binding. Okay, so if you have, what's a good example? All right, paperback copy of something for Call of Cthulhu. That's perfect binding. That's all that is. It's the square binding, right? I don't like those for war games. If you can't staple it because the book's too big, then give me a spiral bound. Lock and Load's doing that now, which I think is great. Bob Meyer mentions that Gygax's Alexander the Great, which was published by Avalon Hill, uses different counter shapes and sizes. I've never really even looked at that, though, to be completely honest. Eric Goebel would have preferred different size counters for armies versus independent formations for Death in the Trenches. I might agree with you. Unfortunately, I feel like Death in the Trenches, well, it's a game that's got a lot of potential. I feel like it's got way too long a playtime for the kind of game that it is. That was my critique of Death in the Trenches specifically. There's certainly things to like about it. Francisco says that originally folks just wanted a way to tie together the 3 Chadwick Victory Point games that were inspired by Battle for Moscow, then Scope Creep, and then we're suddenly doing Europa again. But hopefully better. And I will agree that many of the larger issues that I had with Europa are in fact solved by Thunder in the East. So, no, I don't think so. He may have done a game on the topic, but it wasn't Struggle of Nations or called Struggle of Nations. There are several sort of late Napoleonic period Campaigns of Napoleon games that I don't have. I have 1809, I have 1807, which is from Clash of Arms. I have Bonaparte in Italy, which is from OSG, the old one, with the 3 maps that cover like most of northern Italy. I've got 1 or 2 of the Days games, and I think that might be what we're thinking of, because I think Zucker did a Days series game on this topic, but it wasn't called Struggle of Nations. Struggle of Nations did have a great cover, though. I will tell you that. I like the cover. Yeah, I mean, this is. I do think it's this simple. I think different shapes and sizes can tell you things about what the counter is and how it behaves, and that's cool. But you could take that you could take any idea too far, right? Wow, Robert O. Struggle of Nations, first Napoleonic wargame. I could see why that turned you off. The Energizer Bunny is a great example, or analogy, actually. And it really is really did feel like a big loss. We had just had him on the show like a month before, and it's like, what? And then somebody pings me, and there's like, hey, did you hear about Alan Emmerich? I'm like, what? And I went and did all the legwork to find out what was going on, and I'm like, shit. So, Stuart, thanks for stepping by. From Korea, presidential election day in Korea. He can't vote, but everybody gets the day off. So, that's cool. Yes, DJ Flippy, my mentioning the warped Avalon Hill boards caused the Avalon Hill boards to warp. Now, interestingly, the only one, because I've got several of those. I've got Trireme, and I've got Struggle of Nations, and I got a couple other ones of those one-piece Avalon Hill boards that warp very badly. Interestingly, the one that hasn't, and is actually still, it's not perfectly flat, but it's pretty flat, and I didn't feel obliged to put plexi on top of it, is Frank's own Frederick the Great. So I don't think Frank was responsible for my personal board not bending, but there you go. I don't know if it was too ambitious, but I would like to see it, and I would like to see it finished too. I'm just not sure it's going to be. So Mike says there is still work being done, but he's not sure how long that will last. I don't know. You know, it's kind of up. I mean, it's kind of up to Frank at this point, right? So, And yeah, if you rule books that, well, you know, Starfleet Battles is not a bad idea either. And they sold it for, I mean, technically they still do, in a loosely format for Starfleet Battles. And now, if you try to organize it that way into binders, it's a pain. I strongly recommend against that. I did that back in the day, and my current Starfleet Battles stuff, which is a pretty minimalist set, is not doing that. Yeah, you can do this. You can take a perfect bound book to Home Depot, Staples, whatever, Home Depot, Office Depot, as Danny says, to whatever your office supply store is, and they can slice the spine off on a guillotine cutter and spiral bind it, and that is great. I will have, and I do like spiral bindings better than comb bindings, but I have a comb binding machine, so I can do comb bindings myself at home. The comb binding machine is not very expensive. The spiral binding machine is very expensive. Eric says that his copy of Thunder in the East was perfect, which is good. I'm glad for you. Mine was not. I probably have this multi-hex dragon, since I have just off camera up on the top of the shelf. Well, a little bit more than just off camera, but on the top of the shelf next to the SPI flats is the Fantasy Trip, the big Mondo box from Steve Jackson Games. I mean, the book will get beat up, but the book's going to get beat up anyway if you're referencing it that much. So, I think you're right. I think I've seen more spiral around rule books being used by miniatures people too. Carl, thanks for stopping by. It is 10 p.m. I'm sorry. Thunder in the East is the correct pronunciation of that game's title. We're going to get caught up on the chat here, folks, and then we are going to... This is hilarious. Why do you think it's there? Why do you think it's there? Just a tease. Just a tease. All right, I am homing in on the... All right, very good. So, folks, we are out of time for the evening. Couple reminders before we go. There might be a video on Thursday or Friday this week, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Meanwhile, we will be back next Sunday night with the Chit Show at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, as a reminder, everybody like the video, subscribe to the channel, and our new campaign announced this very evening is a giveaway of Case Blue using the Noble Knight store credit. So the current Noble Knight campaign as of today, since they don't have the other thing that we were shooting for, I'm going to roll all that credit over into Case Blue. I'm going to pick it up, get it from Noble Knight, check it to make sure that it's cool. Noble Knight will fix it if it's not. We'll make sure that happens. And then we will give it away on this show. That'll probably happen in something like 2 to 3 months, but we will see how the performance of the affiliate link in the video description does. So big shout out to the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair. All the super chats and super stickers tonight, which were huge, are much appreciated as well. And a big shout out to the patrons and to our good friends at Noble Knight, the official sponsors of the Counter Clipping Show. Everybody have a great rest of the night, and we'll see you all again soon.